My name is Clara, and I'm 35. For years, I scraped and saved to buy my dream vacation home, a cedar cabin nestled in the Smoky Mountains. Its porch, with views of misty peaks, felt like my slice of peace. I imagined family laughter filling the rooms, the hand-carved sign above the fireplace, reading, "Peace lives here." So, when my sister Sadie asked to borrow it for a weekend, I trusted her. Big mistake. I came back to a trashed home and a shattered heart. Have you ever trusted someone and regretted it? Like, if you've been there, subscribe for the full story and tell me where you're watching from. I stood frozen on the porch, my boots crunching on shards of a broken wine glass. The cabin door hung slightly open, and a sour stench of stale beer hit me as I pushed it wider. Inside, my living room looked like a tornado had torn through. Empty cans littered the coffee table, cigarette burns scarred my wool rug, and the oak floor was sticky with spilled drinks. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. Nathan stepped in behind me, his breath catching as he surveyed the mess. This wasn't just a party gone wild. The leather couch I'd spent months saving for had a gash across its arm, stuffing spilling out like a wound. A watercolor painting my grandmother left me hung crooked, its frame splintered. Worst of all, I spotted the photo of me and Sadie taken when we were kids at a county fair, grinning with cotton candy smeared on our faces. The glass was cracked, splitting our smiles in two. I picked it up, my fingers trembling, and set it gently on the mantel. Nathan knelt by the fireplace, picking up a piece of my carved sign, now just kindling. He looked at me, his jaw tight. "Clara, what the hell happened here?" I couldn't answer. My throat felt like it was stuffed with cotton. I pulled out my phone and dialed Sadie. It rang 4 times before she picked up, her voice breezy, like she was lounging by a pool. "Hey, Clara, what's up, Sadie? I'm at the cabin," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's trashed. What did you do?" She laughed, a sharp, careless sound. "Oh, come on, it's not that bad. Just a little party. My friends got a bit rowdy, that's all. A little party." I snapped, pacing the sticky floor. "There's burns on my rug, the couch is ripped, and my photo frame's broken." "Sadie, you promised to take care of this place." "Relax, Clara," she said, and I heard a faint giggle in the background. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's just stuff. You've got money to fix it." I clenched the phone, my knuckles whitening. In the background, I caught another voice, loud and mocking. "Fancy cabin lady freaking out yet?" It was Tessa, Sadie's friend, who'd always had a chip on her shoulder about anyone doing better than her. "Sadie put Tessa on," I said, my voice low. "Nah, she's busy," Sadie replied, and I could practically hear her smirk. "Look, I've got to go. Clean it up and chill." "Okay." She hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone, my pulse roaring in my ears. Nathan put a hand on my shoulder, his touch warm, but not enough to thaw the cold anger spreading through me. "She's lying," he said. "This wasn't an accident." I nodded, but my mind was spinning. I'd given Sadie the spare key last month, her eyes wide with excitement when I handed it over. She'd hugged me, promising to treat the cabin like her own. I'd believed her, even though I knew her history, wrecking my old Honda in high school, borrowing my clothes, and never returning them. Why did I think this would be different? I walked to the kitchen, hoping to find one corner of my sanctuary untouched. Instead, I saw the countertop, a beautiful slab of walnut Nathan and I had installed together, marred with deep scratches, like someone had dragged a knife across it. I ran my fingers over the grooves, each one feeling like a betrayal carved into my dream. Clara, Nathan called from the living room, his voice tense. "You need to see this." I joined him, and he pointed to a trash can overflowing with pizza boxes and plastic cups. Tucked among them was a crumpled invitation handwritten in Sadie's loopy scrawl, "Epic Cabin Bash, bring your own booze." My stomach twisted. This wasn't a small gathering. She'd planned a full-blown rager in my home, knowing I'd trusted her. I sank onto the ruined couch, the springs creaking under me. Nathan sat beside me silent, giving me space to process. I thought of the summers I'd spent dreaming of this cabin, the overtime shifts I'd worked, the furniture I'd chosen with care. It wasn't just stuff like Sadie said. It was years of my life my heart poured into every detail. And she'd laughed it off with Tessa egging her on. I looked at Nathan, his eyes steady but burning with the same anger I felt. "I need to talk to my parents," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "They need to know what she did." He nodded, squeezing my hand. "We'll figure this out, Clara. Together." But as I stood, the broken photo caught my eye again, Sadie's cracked smile staring back at me. I didn't know if I was angrier at her or at myself for believing she'd changed. All I knew was that this hurt deeper than I could put into words, and it was only the beginning. I drove to my parents' house the next morning, the weight of the trashed cabin heavy in my chest. Nathan offered to come, but I needed to face this alone. The familiar brick ranch came into view, its neat lawn, and rose bushes, a stark contrast to the chaos I'd left behind. I parked my hands, still gripping the steering wheel, rehearsing what I'd say. I wanted them to understand, to see my side, to hold Sadie accountable for once. Inside, the house smelled of coffee and fresh bread like every Sunday visit. My mom, Margaret, was in the living room, her knitting needles clicking rhythmically, a half-finished scarf spilling over her lap. My dad, Gregory, sat in his recliner flipping through a fishing magazine. They looked up smiling as if nothing was wrong. "Clara." "Good to see you," Mom said, setting her needles down. "Want some coffee?" I shook my head, my throat tight. "I need to talk about the cabin. Sadie trashed it." "It's bad, Mom. Really bad." Her smile faded, but not into concern, more like annoyance. "Trashed? What do you mean?" she asked, folding her arms. I took a deep breath, pulling out my phone to show them photos I'd taken, the scarred countertop, the torn couch, the littered floor. She had a huge party. There's thousands in damage. I trusted her, and she lied to me. Dad leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "Well, that's not great, Clara, but kids have parties. Sadie's only 22. She's figuring things out." My stomach nodded. "Figuring things out, Dad. She invited strangers into my home. They broke my grandmother's painting, ruined my floors. This isn't just a mess, it's disrespect." Mom picked up her knitting again, her needles moving faster now, the click sharp in the quiet room. "Clara, you're 35. You've got a good job, a husband, that beautiful cabin. Sadie's still young. She doesn't have what you have. Maybe she got carried away, but you can afford to fix it." Her words hit like a slap. I stood there, my phone still in hand, the photos glaring up at me. "Afford it, that's not the point. She destroyed something I worked years for." "Doesn't that matter?" Dad sighed, leaning back. "Of course it matters. But family's family. You don't need to make a big fuss. Sadie's got enough on her plate. Did you know she's been struggling to find a job?" I blinked, my anger flaring. "Struggling?" She had time to throw a party and laugh it off when I called her. "And you're bringing up her job now? What does that have to do with this?" Mom's eyes flicked up, her voice calm but firm. "Clara, you've always been the responsible one. We've relied on you to hold things together. Sadie needs more grace. She's not like you." I felt my face heat, a mix of hurt and disbelief churning inside me. "Not like me." Those words echoed back to every time they'd excused Sadie's mistakes, when she totaled my car, and they paid for her new one when she skipped college, and they funded her gap year travels. I'd worked doubles at the hospital, saved every penny for that cabin, while Sadie got handouts and second chances. "Grace," I said, my voice shaking. "What about me? I trusted her with my home and she spit in my face. And you're telling me to let it go because I can afford it." Dad raised a hand like he was calming a child. "We're not saying it's right, Clara. Just that you're in a different place. We gave Sadie a small loan last month to help her out. She's trying. Maybe talk to her, work it out. A loan." My mind reeled. They'd given her money knowing she'd been reckless before, and now they were brushing off my loss like it was nothing. I slipped my phone into my pocket, my hands trembling. I did talk to her. She laughed and hung up. Her friend Tessa was there mocking me. "This wasn't an accident, Dad." Mom's needles paused, her brow furrowing. "Tessa. That girl's trouble. Maybe she pushed Sadie into it. You know how impressionable your sister is." I wanted to scream. Impressionable Sadie was 22, not 12, but they were already rewriting the story, painting her as the victim. I took a step back, my boots scuffing the hardwood floor. "So, that's it? You're just going to defend her like always?" "We're not defending her," Dad said, his tone sharp now. "We're asking you to be reasonable. You've got a good life, Clara. Don't let this tear the family apart. Reasonable." The word burned. I looked around the room at the family photos on the mantle, me graduating nursing school, Sadie at her prom, all smiles and no consequences. I'd always been the one to keep the peace, to swallow my hurt, to clean up the messes. But this time, the mess was mine, and they expected me to mop it up without a word. I turned to leave, my voice low. "I need to think about this. I'll call you later." Mom called after me. "Clara, don't be like that. We're just trying to help." But I didn't stop. I walked out the screen door, slamming behind me, my heart pounding with a mix of anger and grief. As I climbed into my car, I realized this wasn't just about the cabin anymore. It was about years of being asked to carry the weight of Sadie's choices, of being told my pain didn't matter because I was the strong one. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, knowing I couldn't let this slide. Not this time. I spent the next morning at the cabin with Curtis, the contractor, his clipboard scribbled with numbers that made my stomach churn. He pointed out the damage like a doctor diagnosing a patient. Busted pipes under the sink drywall, stained with something sticky. A window cracked so badly it need replacing. "Clara, you're looking at 15 grand minimum," he said, his voice gentle but firm. I knotted my throat tight mentally, tallying the overtime I'd need to pull at the hospital to cover it. Curtis paused, running a hand over a basement wall where someone had spray-painted Tessa's crew in jagged letters. "This ain't just kids messing around," he said, shaking his head. This was personal. His words hit hard, stirring the anger I'd tried to bury after my parents' dismissal. He told me about his own brother, who'd once wrecked his truck and never apologized, and how it took years to let go of the resentment. "You don't owe nobody your peace," he added, his eyes meeting mine. I thanked him, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying my parents' words. "Sadie's young. You can afford it." As Curtis left, I sat on the porch steps, the chilly mountain air biting my cheeks. I pulled out my phone, unable to stop myself, and opened Instagram. Sadie's profile was public, and there it was, a new post from the party. A carousel of photos, her laughing with a red cup, her friends sprawled on my porch. One guy using my grandmother's quilt as a makeshift table for a card game. The caption read, "Epic night." My hands shook as I swiped through. One photo stopped me cold. Sadie grinning, wearing Aunt Lila's pearl necklace, the one I'd left in a velvet box in the bedroom. It wasn't just any heirloom. Aunt Lila had worn it at her wedding, passed it to me before she died, whispering that it was for someone who'd cherish it. I'd cried at her funeral, promising to honor her memory, while Sadie stood nearby, fidgeting, barely engaged. Now she was flaunting it like a party prop. I called Nathan, my voice trembling as I described the post. "She stole Lila's necklace, Nathan. She's parading it online like it's hers." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Clara, this is beyond careless. We need to talk to Tessa. She's in half those photos. Maybe she knows more." I hesitated, my gut twisting at the thought of confronting Tessa. She'd always had a sharp tongue, quick to mock anyone who seemed above her. But Nathan was right. Sadie wasn't acting alone. "Okay," I said, "but not yet. I need to see this for myself first." I kept scrolling, each photo a fresh stab. One showed the kitchen, my walnut countertop littered with bottles, a girl I didn't know, carving something into it with a pocket knife. Another captured the living room, my rug crumpled under muddy boots. The comments were worse. "Best party ever. Sadie knows how to throw down." Not one mentioned the destruction, the disrespect. I closed the app, my chest tight, and leaned against the porch railing. The mountains stretched out before me, their peaks shrouded in fog, but they offered no comfort. This cabin was supposed to be my escape, a place where I could breathe, where I could bring my family together. Instead, Sadie had turned it into her playground, and my parents had waved it off like I was overreacting. Now seeing Lila's necklace around her neck, I felt a new kind of hurt, not just betrayal, but violation. I thought of Aunt Lila, her kind eyes, her stories about standing up to people who tried to take what wasn't theirs. She'd left me that necklace because she trusted me to protect its meaning. Sadie hadn't just trashed my home, she'd trampled on a legacy. My anger burned hotter, mingling with a grief I couldn't name. I wanted to scream, to drive to Sadie's apartment and demand answers, but I knew that wouldn't fix this. As I stood there, my phone buzzed a text from my brother Miles. "Heard about the cabin. Can we talk?" My heart sank. Miles had always been close to Sadie, quick to defend her, even when she didn't deserve it. If he was reaching out now, it wasn't to take my side. I shoved the phone in my pocket, not ready to face another family member telling me to let it go. The pain was too raw, and it was only getting worse. I ignored Miles's text and drove to my parents' house for a family dinner, hoping to clear the air. The dining room was set like always, Mom's blue tablecloth, Dad's favorite meatloaf, and a vase of daisies from the garden. But the air felt thick, like a storm was brewing. Sadie wasn't there. She'd texted Mom she was busy, but Miles sat across from me, his fork scraping his plate. Nathan stayed home, sensing I needed to face this without him. I tried to keep things light, asking about Dad's fishing trip, but my voice sounded hollow. Finally, I couldn't hold it in. I saw Sadie's Instagram posts, I said, setting down my glass. "She's bragging about the party wearing Aunt Lila's necklace." "Mom, Dad, this isn't just a mistake. She planned it." Mom's lips pursed her knife, pausing mid-cut. "Clara, you're blowing this out of proportion. Sadie's not perfect, but she's not malicious. Maybe she borrowed the necklace for fun." "Borrowed?" I said, my voice rising. She didn't ask. "She's selling my pain as her epic night." "How is that not malicious?" Miles leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Clara, come on. You're acting like she burned the place down. It's a house. You've got money, a career. Sadie's scraping by. Maybe she was jealous, but you're making her sound like a criminal." Jealous. The word stung, but not as much as his tone, like I was the one being unreasonable. "Miles, she invited strangers to destroy my home. You saw the photos. The necklace? You think that's okay?" He sighed, rubbing his neck. "I'm not saying it's okay, but you're coming at her like she's the enemy. She's our sister. And honestly, you flaunting that cabin doesn't help. You know she's always felt like she's in your shadow." Flaunting my fork clattered to the plate. I'd never rubbed my success in anyone's face. Every nail in that cabin, every shift I worked was mine, earned through sweat and sacrifice. So this is my fault, because I worked for something she didn't. That's not what I meant, Miles said, but his eyes flicked away guilty. I just think you're being too hard on her. I gave her some cash for that party, thinking it was a small thing. I didn't know it'd go like this. My breath caught. You funded it. You knew she was using my cabin and you didn't tell me. It wasn't like that, he said, defensive. She said it was a few friends. I was trying to help her out. She's been down, Clara. You wouldn't get it. I looked at Mom and Dad, waiting for them to step in to say something about Miles enabling her about Sadie's lies. But Mom just sipped her water, her face blank, and Dad cleared his throat. Clara, let's not turn this into a fight. Miles made a mistake, but he meant well. We all know Sadie's got her struggles. You're the strong one. Always have been. The strong one. Those words again, like a chain around my neck. I pushed my plate away, the meatloaf untouched. So, I'm supposed to eat this because I'm strong. My home's ruined. My memories are trashed, and you're all acting like it's my job to fix it. Mom's voice sharpened. Clara, you're twisting this. We're not against you, but you've got so much. Nathan, your job, that cabin. Sadie's got nothing. You could show a little compassion. Compassion. For the sister who'd mocked my pain online, who'd stolen from me, who'd let her friends carve up my dreams. I stood my chair, scraping the floor. Compassion. Where's your compassion for me? I'm your daughter too. Dad raised his hands. Enough. We're not solving this tonight. Sit down, Clara. Let's eat. But I couldn't. The room felt too small, their voices too loud. Miles stared at his plate. Mom adjusted her napkin, and Dad started cutting his meatloaf again, like my hurt was just a tantrum. I grabbed my coat, my vision blurring. I need air, I said, heading for the door. Clara, don't walk out, Mom called, but I was already gone, the cold evening air hitting my face. I leaned against my car, my chest heaving, the weight of their words crushing me. Miles funding the party, Sadie's jealousy, my parents' refusal to see my pain. It was too much. I'd spent my life being the strong one, but now I felt like I was breaking, and no one cared enough to notice. I was still reeling from the family dinner, my hands shaking as I drove home when my phone pinged. It was a text from Tessa, of all people, with a video attachment and a single line. Thought you should see this. My stomach dropped. I pulled into a gas station lot, the neon lights casting harsh shadows, and opened the message. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the play button. Something told me this would change everything, but I had to know. The video started, shaky music blaring, the cabin's living room packed with strangers. Sadie stood on my coffee table, Red Cup raised her laugh cutting through the noise. Then the camera panned to a group by the fireplace, and I saw it, my hand-carved sign, the one that said, "Peace lives here," being tossed into the flames. Sadie cheered, her voice slurred. Clara's too uptight for this place. Let's make it ours. The crowd roared, and someone handed her a beer as the sign crackled and burned. My breath caught a sharp pain slicing through my chest. This wasn't just a party gone wrong. She'd targeted me, mocked me, burned my dream right in front of her friends. I rewatched the clip, hoping I'd misheard, but each second was worse. The camera caught Tessa smirking in the background, filming it all like a trophy moment. I clutched the phone, my nails digging into my palm, tears stinging my eyes. I texted Nathan, forwarding the video. Sadie did this on purpose. She burned the sign. Tessa sent me proof. His reply came fast. I'm coming home. We're calling a lawyer. But I couldn't wait. I needed to be alone to process the betrayal sinking deeper with every heartbeat. I drove to the cabin, the mountain roads blurring through my tears. When I got there, I sat on the porch, the cold wood biting through my jeans, and stared at the dark outline of the trees. The sign wasn't just wood, it was a promise I'd made to myself when I bought this place, a symbol of the peace I'd fought for. Sadie knew that. She'd been there when I hung it, teasing me for being sentimental, but I thought she understood. Now I saw her laughter in that video, her words. Clara's too uptight, and it felt like she'd burned a piece of my soul. Tessa's text only twisted the knife. Why send it now? Was she gloating or covering her tracks? I pulled my knees to my chest, the night air heavy with pine and regret. I thought of every time I'd let Sadie slide her lies, her recklessness, her entitlement, because she was my sister, because I was the strong one. But this was malice. She'd planned to hurt me, to take what was mine, and laugh while doing it. And my parents, Miles, they'd all stood by her telling me to swallow my pain, to be reasonable. My phone buzzed again, Tessa this time, with a voice message. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. Her voice was smug, dripping with venom. Sadie said you're all high and mighty with your fancy cabin, Clara. She wanted to show you up. Bet you're crying now, huh? I dropped the phone, my hands trembling. Tessa's words confirmed it. Sadie's party wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated attack fueled by jealousy, egged on by Tessa's spite. I stood pacing the porch, my breath coming in short, angry bursts. I wanted to call Sadie, to scream, to demand why she hated me enough to do this. But I knew she'd just laugh like she did on the phone, or worse, play the victim. I thought of Aunt Lila, how she'd taught me to stand tall to protect what mattered. I'd failed her, letting Sadie steal her necklace, letting her friends defile this place. The shame, mixed with my rage, a storm I couldn't contain. I went inside the cabin's silence, deafening. The fireplace loomed its hearth, still flecked with ash from the burned sign. I sank to the floor, my back against the wall, and let the sobs come. I wasn't just crying for the cabin or the necklace, it was for the sister I thought I had, the family I thought would have my back. They'd all chosen Sadie, leaving me to pick up the pieces alone. I barely slept, my eyes swollen from crying. But I dragged myself to my parents' house the next evening, clutching my phone with Tessa's video. I'd called a family meeting, determined to make them see the truth. The living room was dim, the old chandelier casting shadows on the floral wallpaper. Mom sat on the couch, her scarf half knitted, Dad in his recliner, and Miles perched on an ottoman, arms crossed. Sadie slouched in a chair, scrolling her phone, her face blank like she was bored. I stood, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. I'm not here to argue. I need you to see what Sadie did. I connected my phone to the TV, Tessa's video filling the screen. The room went silent as Sadie's voice echoed, laughing about my uptight life, her friends cheering as they trashed my home. The final frame froze on her tossing my quilt onto the floor, a stranger spilling beer on it. Mom gasped, her needles slipping to the floor. Dad's jaw tightened, but Sadie just rolled her eyes. Clara, seriously. You're playing detective now. It was a party. Get over it. My blood boiled, but I kept my tone even. A party where you burned my sign, stole Aunt Lila's necklace, and let your friends ruin my home. You planned it to hurt me. Tessa sent me this to prove it. Sadie smirked, leaning back. Tessa's a liar. And you're rich, Clara. You'll fix it. Why make a scene? Her words were a match to gasoline. Rich, I worked 10 years for that cabin. Every board, every rug was mine. You knew what it meant to me, and you laughed while destroying it. Miles shifted his voice low. Clara, you're shaming her in front of everyone. This isn't fair. I told you I helped with the party. Yell at me, not her. I turned to him, my voice cracking. Fair? You think this is about you? She lied to you too, Miles. She used my home to prove a point, and you're still defending her. Mom stood, her hands wringing. Clara, stop. Tessa's the problem, not Sadie. She's a bad influence. You're tearing us apart over a house. A house I snapped, tears spilling over. It's my heart, Mom. My memories. I showed you the damage, the necklace, the video, and you're still blaming everyone but Sadie. Dad cleared his throat, his voice gruff. Family sticks together, Clara. You're blowing this up. Sadie's sorry, aren't you? Honey? Sadie shrugged, not looking up from her phone. Sure, whatever. Sorry you're so mad. The room spun. Her apology was a mockery, her smirk a blade. I'd laid bare my pain, shown them proof, and they still chose her. I thought of every sacrifice, missing vacations to save working nights, to afford that quilt, building a home I hoped we'd all share. Now Sadie sat there untouched, while I was the villain for demanding accountability. Miles stood, his face flushed. Clara, you're acting like you're perfect. That cabin's your pride, not ours. Sadie messed up, but you're humiliating her. Maybe she's right. You're too attached to stuff. His words broke something inside me. My brother, who'd borrowed my car, eaten at my table, now saw me as the problem. Mom nodded faintly, and Dad looked away, his silence louder than any argument. I'd come to unite us, to make them see my hurt, but instead, I was alone. My pain dismissed as pride, my loss reduced to stuff. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped it. I'm done, I whispered, my voice raw. I can't keep begging you to care. I walked out, their voices fading behind me, my heart shattered in a way no repair bill could fix. I drove home from my parents' house, the night swallowing the road ahead, my heart still raw from Sadie's smirk and my family's dismissal. Nathan was waiting in our living room, the lamp casting a soft glow on his worried face. I collapsed onto the couch, my coat still on, and told him everything, the video, Sadie's fake apology, Miles calling my cabin, my pride. He listened, his hand steady on mine, then said, Clara, we can't let this go. What do you want to do? I stared at the ceiling, my mind churning. For years, I'd been the one to smooth things over, to forgive, to carry the family's weight. But Sadie's betrayal, my parents' indifference, it was too much. I couldn't keep being the strong one if it meant erasing my own worth. I want her to face consequences. I said, my voice quiet but firm. Real ones. The next morning, I called Rachel, a lawyer friend from my hospital shifts. Her office was small, cluttered with legal books, and a coffee mug that read, Justice Brews Slowly. I showed her Tessa's video, the photos of the damage, and the Instagram posts, including the one with Aunt Lila's necklace. Rachel leaned back, her pen tapping her desk. Clara, this is vandalism, theft, and intentional damage. You've got a solid case for small claims court. We can send Sadie a formal demand for the repair costs, $15,000, plus the necklace's value. If she doesn't pay, we file. My stomach twisted, not from fear, but from the weight of it, suing my sister. It felt like crossing a line I could never uncross. Yet the image of Sadie laughing as my sign burned, of my parents shrugging off my pain, pushed me forward. What do I need to do? I asked. Rachel slid a notepad across her desk. We'll draft a letter detailing the damages and demanding payment within 30 days. You'll need evidence photos, the video, repair estimates. I'll also check if the necklace was sold online like you suspect. That's theft, Clara, and it strengthens your case. I nodded, my resolve hardening. Back home, I spread Curtis's estimate across the kitchen table, its numbers stark, $2,500 for plumbing, $4,000 for drywall, $1,200 for the window. Each line was a reminder of Sadie's disregard. Nathan sat beside me, pulling up Sadie's Instagram on his laptop. Look at this, he said, pointing to a comment under the party post. Love the pearls, Sadie. Where'd you get 'em? Her reply. Family heirloom. My sis won't miss it. My breath caught. She'd admitted it publicly, flaunting her theft. I screenshotted the exchange, my hands steady now, fueled by a quiet fury. Nathan printed it, adding it to a folder with the photos and video. This is enough, Clara, he said. She can't lie her way out of this. I spent the afternoon organizing evidence, each piece a brick in the wall I was building to protect myself. Rachel's words echoed. You've got a solid case. For the first time since finding the trashed cabin, I felt a spark of control, like I was reclaiming my voice. But doubt crept in too. What if Sadie played the victim again? What if my parents saw this as me betraying the family? I pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the folder in my hands, its weight grounding me. By evening, I sat at my desk staring at a blank email to Rachel. I typed a single line. Let's send the demand letter. My finger hovered over the send button, my heart racing. This wasn't just about money. It was about saying my pain mattered, that I wasn't invisible. I hit send, a surge of strength rising in my chest, like a tide I couldn't stop. After sending the email to Rachel, I felt a shift, like a weight lifting just enough to let me breathe. But I wasn't done. The cabin, my sanctuary, needed protecting, and I couldn't rely on trust anymore. The next day, I called a security company scheduling an appointment to install cameras and a smart lock. Nathan raised an eyebrow when I told him, but his smile was proud. You're taking back your space, Clara. I'm in. Let's split the cost. We met the technician Harper at the cabin that weekend. She was brisk, her toolbox clinking as she surveyed the porch. This place is gorgeous, she said, eyeing the misty peaks. Shame someone disrespected it. These cameras will catch anyone who tries again. As she wired the system, I walked through the house, imagining it whole again, not just repaired, but mine in a way it hadn't been before. The thought steadied me, like planting roots in shaky ground. Back home, I drafted a letter to my family, my pen scratching the paper with purpose. I wrote clearly, no anger, just truth. The cabin was off limits to everyone until repairs were paid. Sadie was banned indefinitely unless she took responsibility. I outlined the damage, $15,000 plus the stolen necklace, and my decision to pursue legal action if needed. The words flowed, each sentence a reclaiming of my voice. I sealed the envelope, my fingers steady, and handed it to Nathan. Mail this tomorrow, I said. I want them to have it in writing. He nodded, but his eyes searched mine. You sure about this? It's a big step. I was. For too long, I'd let my family's expectations silence me, but this letter was my line in the sand. It wasn't about revenge. It was about respect for myself and the life I'd built. That evening, Miles called, his voice hesitant. Clara, I got your text about the meeting. I'm sorry about dinner. I didn't mean to pile on. I listened, my heart softening but firm. Miles, I appreciate that, but words aren't enough. Sadie's actions hurt me, and so did everyone's silence. If you want to fix this, support my boundaries. He was quiet, then said, I'll try. I didn't know how bad it was. It wasn't full agreement, but it was a start. I hung up, feeling a flicker of hope, not for reconciliation, but for my own strength. I'd stopped begging for their approval, and that alone felt like freedom. The next morning, I met Rachel at a coffee shop, the air thick with espresso and rain. She'd traced Aunt Lila's necklace to an online marketplace. Sadie had sold it for $200, a fraction of its worth. Rachel's eyes were sharp. This is theft, Clara. We'll add it to the demand letter. I've seen cases like this, siblings taking what's not theirs, thinking they'll get away with it. You're doing the right thing. Her words hit deep. She told me about her own sister who'd drained their mom's savings and never looked back. Setting boundaries saved me, she said, stirring her coffee. It's not easy, but it's worth it. I nodded, her story mirroring mine, giving me courage. I signed the final draft of the demand letter, its pages crisp and official, listing every cost, every violation. Rachel promised to send it to Sadie that week. As I left the coffee shop, the rain had stopped, the sky a pale gray. I walked to my car, my steps lighter, not because the fight was over, but because I was finally fighting for myself. At home, I found Nathan installing a new mailbox, one with a lock. He grinned, wiping his hands. No more surprises. I laughed, the sound foreign but real. I stood in our driveway, the folder of evidence tucked under my arm, the weight of my decisions settling in. I'd sent the letter, secured the cabin, drawn my line. For the first time, I felt not just anger or hurt, but power, quiet, unyielding mine. I looked at Nathan, his eyes steady, and nodded. No words, just a shared understanding. I was done being invisible. A week after I sent the demand letter, my phone buzzed with a text from Sadie. It was late, the house quiet, except for the hum of the fridge. Nathan was asleep, and I sat at the kitchen table, a mug of tea gone cold in my hands. Her message was short, sharp. "You're really suing me. You're pathetic, Clara." My heart thudded, not with fear, but with a strange calm. I didn't reply. I'd said what I needed in the letter. Now it was her move. The next morning, I checked my email. Rachel had an update. The necklace had been recovered from a pawn shop in town, its pearls dull but intact. The shop owner confirmed Sadie sold it, her signature scrawled on the receipt. Rachel was adding this to the court filing along with the demand for repair costs. I stared at the photo of the necklace she'd attached, its familiar curve, sparking memories of Aunt Lila's warm hands clasping it around my neck. I'd get it back, but the victory felt hollow, tainted by Sadie's disregard. I expected silence from my family after the letter, but Sadie's response came fast and loud. She called that afternoon, her voice shrill through the speaker. "You think you're so perfect, Clara, dragging me to court? You're tearing the family apart over a stupid house?" I stood in my backyard, the grass damp under my boots, and let her rant. She called me selfish, greedy, said I'd always looked down on her. Each word was a dart, but they didn't pierce like they used to. I'd heard it all before. When she paused, I spoke, my voice low. "Sadie, you made choices. You trashed my home, stole from me. This is what happens next." She laughed, bitter, and hung up. I pocketed the phone, staring at the oak tree in our yard, its leaves rustling in the breeze. I'd braced for her anger, but her refusal to even pretend remorse cut deeper than I expected. She wasn't just dodging accountability, she was rewriting the story to make me the villain. Later that day, I drove to the pawn shop to retrieve the necklace. The clerk, a wiry man named Leo, handed it over in a plastic bag, his eyes apologetic. "Didn't know it was stolen," he said, scratching his beard. "Your sister seemed desperate, said she needed cash fast." I nodded, thanking him, but his words lingered. Desperate? Sadie hadn't looked desperate in her Instagram posts, laughing with Tessa, flaunting her epic night. Was she struggling, or was this another lie to justify her actions? I slipped the necklace into my purse, its weight a reminder of what I'd almost lost. Driving home, I felt a mix of relief and unease. Getting it back was a win, but it didn't erase the betrayal or the looming court date. Sadie's text echoed in my mind. "You're pathetic." She wasn't just fighting the demand, she was fighting me, my right to stand up for myself. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles pale, and realized this wasn't about the cabin anymore. It was about who I was allowed to be in my family's eyes. When I got home, Nathan was in the garage tinkering with a bookshelf he was building. I showed him the necklace, and he hugged me, his flannel shirt smelling of sawdust. "You did this, Clara," he said. "You're getting justice." I smiled, but my heart wasn't in it. Justice felt like a cold word, not enough to mend what Sadie had broken. I wanted her to understand, to see my pain, but her call proved she never would. As I set the necklace on my dresser, my phone lit up with another text, this time from Mom. "Clara, we got your letter. This isn't you. Call me." I stared at the screen, her words like a stone in my chest. Not me, I'd spent my life being exactly what they wanted, responsible, forgiving, silent. Now when I finally spoke, they didn't recognize me. I turned the phone face down, the silence in the room heavier than ever, my resolve tested by their refusal to see me. I didn't call Mom back. Her text sat unanswered, a quiet accusation I couldn't face. Instead, I threw myself into work, my hospital shifts, a blur of charts and patience, a way to drown out the ache. But the silence from my family grew louder, a void where their support should have been. A few days later, I got a call from Rachel. My parents had contacted Sadie's lawyer, offering to pay half the repair bill to avoid court. The news should have felt like progress, but it didn't. Their money came with a chill, a transaction to keep the peace, not an acknowledgement of my hurt. I met Miles for coffee at a diner, hoping he'd bridge the gap. The place smelled of bacon and syrup, its vinyl booths creaking as we sat. He looked tired. His flannel rumpled his eyes, avoiding mine. "Clara?" "I know you're mad," he said, stirring his mug. "I'm trying to fix things. I've been talking to Sadie. She's working part-time now, saving to pay Mom and Dad back." I sipped my coffee, its bitterness matching my mood. Paying them back doesn't fix what she did to me, Miles. She hasn't apologized. Not really. And you all act like I'm the one breaking the family. He flinched, his spoon clinking against the mug. "I'm not saying you're wrong, but Mom and Dad are upset. They think you're being too harsh. I'm caught in the middle here. Caught in the middle. Like my pain was a family debate, not a wound." I leaned back, my fingers tracing the edge of the table. "Miles, I'm not asking you to pick sides. I'm asking you to see me. Sadie stole from me, trashed my home, and you're all pretending it's my job to forgive her." He looked down, his jaw tight. "I see you, Clara. I just don't know how to fix this." His voice was soft, but it carried the same old excuse: nobody knew how to hold Sadie accountable, so they didn't try. I left the diner, the bell above the door jangling as I stepped into the cool morning, my hope for his support fading. At home, I found a card in the mailbox, my mom's neat handwriting on the envelope. My heart sank as I opened it, a pastel note with flowers, the kind she sent for birthdays. Inside, she'd written, "Wishing you forgiveness, Clara. We love you." No apology, no mention of Sadie's actions, just a plea for me to let go. I set it on the counter, unopened flowers, staring up, and felt a pang of grief. This was their response: a card, a half-paid bill, a refusal to face the truth. I needed to clear my head, so I drove to the cabin, now fitted with cameras that blinked red in the dusk. Curtis was there, finishing the drywall repairs, his radio humming soft country. He nodded as I walked in, his hands dusted with plaster. "Looking better, Clara. You holding up?" I shrugged, managing a smile, but his kindness made my throat tighten. I wandered to the porch, the repaired railing smooth under my palm, and stared at the mountains, their peaks fading into twilight. The cabin was healing, but I wasn't. My parents' payment, Miles's half-hearted effort, Sadie's defiance, they all pressed against me, a reminder that my stand had cost me their warmth. I'd expected anger, maybe a fight, but not this cold distance, this subtle blame. They saw my boundaries as betrayal, my strength as cruelty. I sat on the porch steps, the evening air sharp, and felt the weight of their judgment settle in. I'd fought for myself, but the victory was lonely, and the silence from my family was louder than any words. I woke early on Saturday, the sky outside my bedroom window, a soft pink. The cabin called to me, its repairs nearly done, a quiet pull I couldn't ignore. I drove up alone, the mountain roads winding through fog, my thoughts drifting. The past weeks had been a storm, Sadie's defiance, my parents' distance, the weight of my own choices. But today, I wanted to feel the cabin as mine again, to find something solid amid the chaos. When I arrived, The air was crisp, smelling of damp earth and cedar. The new cameras gleamed on the porch, a silent promise of safety. Inside, the walls were smooth with fresh paint, the floors polished to a warm glow. I carried a small wooden sign I'd ordered, its letters bold: strength lives here. I hung it above the fireplace, stepping back to admire its simple truth. This place wasn't just a house. It was proof I could rebuild even after betrayal. I set to work in the backyard, a patch of soil I'd cleared for a garden. Nathan had offered to help, but I needed this moment alone. I knelt, my hands sinking into the cool dirt, planting lavender and rosemary, their scents rising with each pat of the earth. The rhythm was soothing, each seedling a small act of faith. I thought of the hospital, how I'd learned to stitch wounds to heal what was broken. Maybe I could do that for myself too. As I worked, I found a small tin box buried in the soil, rusted but intact. My heart skipped. It must have been here when I bought the place. I pried it open, revealing a folded note in faded ink. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the words struck deep. Protect your heart, but don't close it. I sat back on my heels, the note trembling in my hands. It felt like a message from someone who'd stood where I was, who'd known loss and chosen to keep going. I tucked the note into my pocket, its words echoing as I planted the last of the herbs. The garden was small, but it was mine, a corner of the world I could shape. I wiped my hands on my jeans, the dirt smudging like a badge, and stood stretching in the morning sun. For the first time in weeks, my chest didn't feel so tight, my anger not so sharp. I wasn't healed, but I was here building something new. Midday, I heard a car pull up. It was Harper, Nathan's sister, her pickup truck rattling with gardening tools. She'd texted earlier, offering to drop off some perennials she'd promised. Her hair was tied back, her smile easy as she hauled out pots of marigolds. "Figured your garden could use a pop of color," she said, setting them down. We sat on the porch, sharing a thermos of coffee, the mountains stretching before us. Harper sipped, then spoke, her voice thoughtful. "Nathan told me about your sister, the lawsuit. I had a cousin like that, always taking, never sorry. I cut her off last year. Hardest thing I ever did, but it saved me." I nodded, her story settling into me like a mirror. She didn't push, just sat there, her presence steady, letting me feel the weight of my own choices without judgment. I told her about the note, its simple advice. She smiled, tilting her head. "Sounds like the universe talking, Clara. You're protecting your heart, but you're still here planting, building. That's not closing off." Her words landed soft, like the breeze rustling the pines. I looked at the garden, the new sign, the cabin standing tall despite everything. She was right. I was still open, just differently. As Harper packed up, she handed me a marigold, its petals bright against the green. "For luck," she said, then drove off her truck, disappearing down the road. I held the flower, its scent sharp and alive, and felt a quiet shift inside me. The hurt was still there, the family rift raw, but I was finding my own ground, my own peace, one small root at a time. After Harper left, I stayed on the porch, the marigold's bright petals soft in my hand. The mountains loomed quiet, their peaks catching the last of the afternoon light. I walked inside the cabin's new floors, creaking gently, and opened a drawer in the kitchen. There, wrapped in cloth, was Aunt Lila's necklace, cleaned and restrung after its return from the pawn shop. I held it up, the pearls cool against my palm, their faint luster, a whisper of her strength. I didn't put it on, just set it on the counter, letting it rest like me. Miles texted as I locked up his message. Brief: "Sadie's paying Mom and Dad back slowly. She's trying, Clara. Can we meet soon?" I read it twice, my thumb hovering over the reply. Part of me wanted to call to hear his voice to believe Sadie was changing. But another part, steadier now, knew her efforts didn't erase my hurt. I typed back, "I'm glad she's trying. Let's talk soon." Short, honest enough for now. I didn't know more. Driving home, I passed a community center, its sign advertising a workshop on family boundaries. On impulse, I pulled over and walked in. The room was small folding chairs in a circle, a handful of people sharing stories of siblings' parents' losses like mine. A woman named June spoke about her mother, who'd always chosen her brother over her, even after he lied. "I stopped chasing her love," she said, her voice calm. "I built my own." Her words landed like a stone in still water rippling through me. I stayed until the end, listening, not speaking. Their stories weren't mine, but they held the same thread, people learning to stand tall without apology. I signed up to volunteer, jotting my name on a clipboard, a small choice that felt bigger than it looked. Helping others find their voice might help me hold on to mine. As I left, the night sky was clear stars, sharp against the dark, and I felt lighter, like I'd left some of my anger in that room. At home, I sat at my desk, a blank journal open. The pen felt heavy, but I wrote not about Sadie or the cabin, but about me. I wrote about the girl who'd always fixed things, who'd carried her family's weight, who'd thought love meant silence. I wasn't her anymore, not fully. I wrote about the note I'd found its call to protect my heart, and how I was learning what that meant. The words came slow, each one a step toward clarity. I closed the journal, my eyes drifting to a photo on the shelf, me and Nathan at the cabin's first summer, laughing as we painted the porch. My family wasn't in that frame, and for the first time, that didn't ache. I'd wanted them here sharing this life, but I couldn't force it. I could only build my own, with people who saw me. Miles was trying. Sadie might grow, my parents might soften, but that was their path, not mine. I stood and walked to the window, the neighborhood quiet porch lights glowing down the street. My reflection stared back, not the Clara who'd begged for fairness, but one who'd chosen herself. I didn't need their approval to be whole. The thought settled in soft as a breath, and I let it linger the world outside, still my heart steady, ready for whatever came next. The cabin glowed under the late summer sun, its fresh paint catching the light as I pulled up with Nathan. Today was different, not a day for repairs or solitude, but for sharing. I'd invited a small group, Miles, Harper, Curtis, and a couple from the community center I'd started mentoring. The porch was set with a wooden table, mismatched chairs, and a pitcher of iced tea sweating in the warmth. I stepped inside, the air smelling of wax and pine, and felt a quiet pride. This place was mine again, not just in deed, but in spirit. I arranged a tray of sandwiches, simple, but made with care, my hands steady as I sliced tomatoes. Nathan strung fairy lights along the railing outside, humming to himself, his ease a balm to my nerves. I'd been hesitant to host, worried the cabin's scars would haunt me, but standing here, I felt ready. The hurt hadn't vanished, but it no longer owned me. Miles arrived first, his truck crunching gravel. He carried a cooler of soda, his smile cautious but warm. "Looks great, Clara," he said, glancing at the new sign above the fireplace. We didn't talk about Sadie, but his presence was enough a step toward mending slow, but real. Harper followed, her arms full of wildflowers. She'd picked their colors bright against her denim shirt. She hugged me, whispering, "You've got this." Curtis came next, his work boots swapped for sneakers, and the couple, Lena and Mark, brought a homemade pie, their shy smiles mirroring my own hope. We sat around the table, the mountains framing us, their ridges soft in the haze. Conversation flowed, Curtis joking about his latest job, Lena sharing her progress in setting boundaries with her dad. I listened, my heart full, these people a new kind of family, bound not by blood, but by understanding. I caught Nathan's eye across the table, his nod subtle, a reminder we'd built this moment together. As the sun dipped, I lit a single candle, its flames steady in the still air. I didn't say it was for Aunt Lila, but I felt her in the quiet, her strength woven into this day. We ate, laughed, the clink of glasses mingling with crickets' hum. I thought of the community center where I'd started leading workshops, helping others find their voice. Each session chipped away at my old need to please, replacing it with something solid myself. Miles pulled me aside as we cleared plates, his voice low. "Sadie's still working, saving up. She asked about you last week." I nodded, my chest tight, but not breaking. "I'm glad she's trying," I said, meaning it. I wasn't ready to see her, but I didn't hate her anymore. That was enough for now. Miles squeezed my shoulder, and I saw something new in his eyes, respect, not just love. The evening wound down, fireflies blinking in the grass. I stood on the porch, watching Curtis's taillights fade, the others' voices lingering in the dusk. Nathan joined me, his arm around my waist, and we stayed there, the world soft and vast. I'd lost pieces of my old family, but I'd gained this, a life I'd chosen, a home I'd reclaimed. My breath came slow, the past settling behind me, not gone, but no longer heavy. The next morning, I woke to a quiet house, Nathan still asleep, the dawn light filtering through our curtains. I slipped out of bed, my bare feet cool on the hardwood, and made coffee, the gurgle of the pot, a familiar comfort. Sitting at the kitchen counter, I opened my journal, its pages now filled with months of thoughts, not just pain, but growth. I wrote one line, "I am enough." It felt like a vow, simple but heavy, a truth I'd earned. I thought about the cabin, how it had been my anchor through the storm. It wasn't the walls or the view that saved me, it was what I'd learned there, standing in the wreckage, choosing to rebuild. I'd spent years tying my worth to my family's approval, thinking love meant carrying their burdens. But Sadie's betrayal, my parents' silence, Miles's hesitation they showed me, I'd been wrong. Love wasn't about erasing myself. It was about standing tall, even when it hurt. I didn't hate Sadie anymore. I saw her now, young and lost, chasing validation in ways that broke others. I forgave her in my heart, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. My parents might never understand their love tied to old patterns, but I didn't need their blessing to live fully. Miles was trying, and that was enough for now. I'd built a new circle, Nathan Harper, the people at the center, who saw me not as the strong one, but as Clara, whole and human. I walked to the living room where a small shelf held keepsakes. I'd framed the note I'd found in the garden, its faded ink a quiet guide. Protect your heart, but don't close it. It reminded me to hold my boundaries, to choose who shared my space, but also to stay open to laughter, to trust days like yesterday, filled with new voices. I'd learned that strength wasn't just fighting back. It was knowing when to let go, when to build anew. My life was different now. I mentored at the center twice a week, guiding others through their own battles, their stories teaching me as much as I taught them. I cooked dinner with Nathan most nights, our kitchen warm with music and chatter, a routine that grounded me. The cabin stood ready, not for the family I'd once dreamed of, but for the one I was creating, one choice at a time. I closed my journal and looked out the window, the neighborhood waking, a jogger passing under the oaks. The world felt wide, not heavy, and I was part of it, not just surviving, but living. I'd lost pieces of my past, but I'd gained myself, and that was worth every scar. I took a slow sip of coffee, its warmth spreading, and let the moment hold me complete. What's a moment that taught you your own worth? Share it below. I read every comment, and your story might light someone else's path. If this moved you, tap that like button, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for being here, for listening. Here's to finding your strength, one quiet step at a time.